Hi everyone, my name is Sarah Mari. I'm one of the librarians at Portland Public Library in Portland, Maine, and I'm here today to continue reading The Vanderbeekers of 141st Street by Karina Yan Glaser, published by Houghton, Mifflin, Harcourt. We're going to pick up where we left off with Chapter 8. After a lunch of grab whatever you can from the fridge, followed by an hour of reading a massive science encyclopedia she had dragged home from the library, Jessie needed a break. She took the stairs 2 at a time to the bedroom in search of Izza. When she opened the door, she found Allegra, their friend from school, standing in the middle of the room wearing a frightful dress that made her look like a giant boysenberry. A bunch of other equally hideous garments were laid out on Izza's bed. Jessie shielded her eyes and grimaced. "I'm blind. Too much tulle, disguised as clothes." Allegra harumphed. "Jessie, get a grip. It's not like I'm going to wear this when I walk the dog." Allegra gave a regal spin that looked like a move she'd learned from a terrible girly girl movie. "This is what you wear for an 8th grade semi-formal dance." "I think Allegra looks lovely," Izza said, gazing at Allegra reverently. "Isn't it amazing that she's going to the 8th grade dance?" Jessie grunted. "I guess." She slumped into the beanbag chair. Allegra looked thoughtfully at Jessie. "Jess, listen up. You could look so gorgeous if you just wore something other than those old jeans and sweatshirts. I bet if you dressed a little nicer and maybe used some Farewell Fritz spray or something like that to smooth down your hair, an 8th grader would invite you to the dance too." Jessie rolled her eyes to the ceiling. "And that, my friend, is why I'm not gonna dress differently. 8th grade boys think they're so cool, and a dance sounds like torture." Jessie looked at Izza for affirmation, but her sister wasn't paying attention. Izza fingered one of the dresses on the bed. "Hey, can I try this on?" She held up the least abominable of the dresses, a floor-length, sleeveless, peach-colored dress that had a high waist and fell in soft folds to the ground. "Sure," Allegra said. "Just feel free to try on anything. The sparkly blue one would look so awesome on you." "Never gonna happen," Jessie replied as she picked at her cuticles. The sparkly blue dress looked like something a 6-year-old would wear to an ice skating competition. "Just help me," Izza said. Jessie got up and helped Izza gently pull the dress down over her head. Jessie smoothed the long skirt and zipped up the back. Izza turned around. "Wow," Jessie breathed. "You look like a queen, an awesome kick-butt queen." Allegra clasped her hands to her chest. "That dress is amazing on you," she squealed. "I so wish you could go to the dance too." Jessie suddenly remembered Benny and their conversation earlier that day. Did Izza want to go to the dance? Generally, the twins were in agreement about these types of things. But there Izza was, standing before her, looking so elegant and grown up in the peach gown, not looking a bit appalled by the idea of going to a fancy pants dance. What had happened? Jessie had meant to mention the thing with Benny from that morning so they could both have a good laugh about it, but now she wasn't sure if Izza would think it was funny. If Izza went to this dance with her, and with a boy, what would that mean? It would be the first major life event that they didn't experience together. "Izza, seriously," Jessie said, a little bit louder than she meant to. "We have bigger things to worry about than dances." "Yeah," said Izza dreamily, admiring herself from different angles in the mirror, her impeccable posture making her look stage-ready for Carnegie Hall. "Hello," Jessie said, waving her hands in front of Izza's face. "Moving the Biederman?" "Whoa," said Allegra. "Who's moving? What Biederman?" Izza snapped out of her reverie and looked at Allegra. "We're moving. The Biederman is our landlord, and he isn't renewing our lease." "We figure we have until Christmas to convince him to let us to stay," Jessie added. "But that's only 4 days away," Allegra exclaimed. "What's your landlord's deal, anyway?" Jessie shrugged. "He can't take all our noise or something." Allegra planted her hands on her hips. "We need to stop him. Your brownstone is the only reason I don't run away from home and find new parents." Allegra's parents were both pediatricians and spent so much time fixing the health problems of other people's kids that Allegra believed they'd forgotten that they had a daughter of their own. "We tried to make contact with the Biederman this morning. Did not go well," Jessie said, and then filled Allegra in on the failed breakfast attempt. "Here's what's going to happen," Allegra declared. "You're going to save your home, and here's how." Jessie clamped her mouth shut as Allegra rattled off a number of unreasonable ideas, including one particularly ridiculous suggestion to purchase the whole brownstone in cash from the Biederman. And when Allegra ran out of ideas, she talked again about the dance and how amazing Isa looked in the gown. Jessie didn't trust herself to join in the conversation, so she slipped out the door without saying anything at all. Oliver spent a dreadfully boring 23 minutes looking through Hyacinth's button collection. When he left his sister peaceful and preoccupied with a craft project, most likely another Christmas gift, he was reminded yet again that he had not figured out Christmas presents. He didn't know how Hyacinth did it. Just 2 weeks ago, she had made him some sort of arm warmer contraption. She was like a workaholic elf. Oliver headed up to his bedroom to think about gifts, but when he saw his copy of Treasure Island sitting on his desk, he had a flash of inspiration to avenge Hyacinth's honor. He pulled out a fresh sheet of notebook paper, briefly contemplated the contents of its letter, and then wrote the following. To the scoundrel on the 3rd floor, I hope your conscience has robbed you of sleep. Being mean will earn you a black spot, and you know what that means. Be nice or watch out. Woe be to the man who does not heed my advice. Signed, your greatest foe. There, Oliver thought, short and to the point. He was particularly proud of the part about the black spot. In Treasure Island, the black spot meant you were guilty of something and would be fully punished. He thought that lent a certain drama to the letter. He folded the letter into thirds and then slipped it into an envelope. He knew he should be trying to win over the Biederman, but how would the upstairs neighbor even know that it was him writing the note anyway? It could be anyone. Oliver had really good handwriting for a 9-year-old. He cut out letters from his amazing Outdoor Adventures magazine to spell Mr. Biederman and then pasted them onto an envelope, laying them out like the ransom notes he'd always imagined getting if someone were to steal Franz or Paganini. That would strike fear into the Biederman's heart. He was sure of it. For the 3rd time that day, a Vanderbeeker kid climbed the staircase to the top floor. Oliver stealthily slipped the letter under the door and then snuck back down the stairs, quiet as a mouse. Oh yeah, who is the man? Let it be known that he, Oliver S. Vanderbeeker, was not to be pushed around when it came to his family. When Oliver re-entered his apartment, feeling as smug as a peacock with a full plume of feathers, he ran straight into Jessie. Do you think I need to dress differently? Jessie demanded. Oliver winced. This could not end well. No, Oliver said, with complete honesty, hoping that was the right answer. Why not? Jessie asked him belligerently. Don't you think my old jeans and stained sweatshirts are gross? Don't you think I dress nicer? Oliver decided to change tactics. Yes? Maybe you should get nicer clothes? So you think I'm a big loser too, huh? You and everyone else, Jessie snapped. Why don't you tell me what you want to say so I can say it and go on with my life? Oliver shot back. Sorry. Jessie didn't look or sound sorry. Well, go eat some ice cream or get a chocolate croissant from Castleman's or something. Jessie's eyes flashed. Apparently, that was yet another wrong thing for Oliver to say, although he couldn't imagine why. Chocolate always cheered up his sisters. Oliver inched again against the hallway wall, trying to give Jessie as much space as possible. Listen, I am an innocent bystander here, Oliver entreated, hands held up in surrender. He disappeared into his bedroom and shut the door. 2 seconds later, he opened the door just wide enough for his hand to sneak out and hang a "Don't Bother the Beast" sign on his doorknob before closing it soundly again. Jessie stared at Oliver's door and the ridiculous sign hanging from the doorknob. She sighed. She really did want a chocolate croissant, maybe 2, but she did not want to go back to Castleman's. She wanted to lie in bed under the covers and feel miserable about life. Jessie's bedroom door opened, and Isa and Allegra emerged, back in their regular clothes. Jessie sighed with relief and took a few deep, calming breaths. Now they could go back to concentrating on what really mattered, like saving their home. Jess, we're going to Castleman's for a croissant. Come with us, said Isa. No, Jessie yelled, her heart rate kicking up. Yes. No. Don't you think we should be brainstorming more about the Biederman? We're just running out for a few minutes. You're the one who always quotes that scientific study about how chemicals in chocolate help the mind work, Isa pointed out. Besides, I want to talk to Benny. Jessie's stomach dropped. She could not, absolutely could not go back to Castleman's today after what had happened that morning with Benny, especially since she hadn't told Isa that Benny wanted to ask her to the dance, especially since it now seemed that Isa did want to go to the dance, especially since Jessie did not want Isa to go to the dance. I have a headache, and I have my science fair research to do, and I need to do some sit-ups. You know, keep the body fit. Stop talking, stop talking, stop talking, Jessie demanded of herself. Jess, is everything all right? Isa's brow furrowed in confusion. Jessie nodded. She didn't trust herself to speak anymore. We'll be right back, and then you can think more about the Biederman. We'll get you a chocolate croissant. Isa and Allegra stepped away from Jessie, Isa still eyeing her sister critically. Jessie attempted to smile, which only made Isa look more concerned. Jessie scooted up into their bedroom and shut the door. She dropped down on her bed, covered her head with a pillow, and let out a low, tortured groan. Chapter 9. That was weird, Allegra said to Isa once they were outside and on their way to Castleman's bakery. I think this moving stuff is making her nuts. Her sister was not taking the news about moving well. Isa had to come up with a new plan to conquer the Biederman once and for all, and she had to do it fast. Allegra shrugged and returned to her new favorite topic, the 8th grade dance. My mom said Carlson will bring me a corsage, and I should get him a boutonniere. Isn't that wild? I think corsages are so gorgeous. How do you think I should wear my hair? Should I leave it down? I wonder if Carlson is going to wear a suit. Wouldn't that be so romantic? I'm so excited. Do you want me to ask Carlson whether he knows anyone who would take you? You're so pretty. I know it wouldn't be hard to find someone. I wish I had your big brown eyes and long eyelashes. How about that boy who sits next to you in orchestra? What's his name? Henry? I love his red hair. And those freckles. So cute. Isa nodded half-heartedly. She was glad to be going to Castleman's. She wanted to tell Benny about the move and ask his advice about the Biederman. Allegra was great, but when Isa talked to Benny, she felt like he stopped everything he was doing and really truly listened to her. They turned the corner and made their way down the street and into the bakery. When they entered, Benny was alone at the counter. "Hey, Benjamin," Allegra called out, walking in first. Benny gave a wave. When Isa stepped in, he frowned at her. But that couldn't be right. Benny had never not smiled when he saw her. "Hi, Benny," Isa said. She smiled at him, but he was definitely frowning. "Is everything okay?" "Yep," Benny replied, not sounding like anything was okay at all. "What do you want?" Isa stilled. "Oh, okay. 2 chocolate croissants?" Isa said, trying to keep her voice steady. Wait, change that to 3. I want to bring one back to Jessie." Benny's frown turned into a full-blown scowl, and his eyes narrowed. He pulled out a piece of wax paper and used it to grab 3 chocolate croissants from the glass case. He dropped them into a white bag and thrust it at her. "Anything else?" he asked. Isa shook her head, taking the bag as if it were filled with snakes. She handed him the money and then waited as he made change. He dropped some quarters in her hand and focused his attention on a point just beyond her left ear, where a picture of a grazing dairy cow hung on the wall. "Benny," Isa began, clutching the bag tighter, I wanted to tell you." "Isa, don't worry about it, okay?" Benny said, still avoiding her gaze. "It's not a big deal." "Wait a second. You already know?" Isa said, confused. "Yeah, I know. Jessie told me this morning." "Okay," Isa said slowly. "Don't you have anything to say about it?" Benny's eyes met Isa's. "What do you want me to say? It's fine. It doesn't matter." Isa stepped back, her fingers gripping the bag so tightly her knuckles turned white. He didn't care that she was moving? I thought you would... "Oh, never mind," Isa swallowed. "I guess I'll see you later." Benny shrugged and turned around, disappearing through the swinging doors that led to the back of the store. Isa stood there for a moment, staring at the empty space he left behind. "Geez," said Allegra, who had been unusually silent during the entire exchange. "What's wrong with him?" Isa felt tears burning in her eyes. She didn't trust herself to respond. Oliver and Lainey stood at the bottom of the stairs watching Mama's parade of boxes pile up along the hallway. George Washington was having a terrific time jumping up on the side of the stacks and swiping his cards to the cardboard. Lainey pointed to a word on a white box and looked at Oliver. "That says donate," Oliver told her. Mama bumped a garbage bag down the stairs. "What's that, Mama?" Lainey asked. "Things to throw away," Mama replied, wiping her forehead with the sleeve of her sweatshirt. But Mama, Oliver protested, pointing the tip of his sword at the blue t-shirt, poking out the top of the bag. That's my favorite t-shirt. Sweetie, that was your favorite t-shirt 2 years ago. There's a weird smell to it. It's not even donatable. Is that a word? Donatable? Oliver dropped his sword and pulled the shirt out. Do not throw this away. Meanwhile, Lainey threw the lid aside from one of the white cardboard boxes, rummaging through the box, removed an old pair of floral leggings, and stretched the waistband around her head to make a hat. Lainey, don't you dare take anything out of that box without telling me, Mama warned. I don't want to see everything we're donating back in your bedroom. Hey, said Papa, coming down the stairs with a slight swagger. He wore his coveralls, and he had his toolbox in one hand. Guess what I just fixed? Mama wanted to throw this shirt away, Oliver said, holding it up so Papa could see. Of course she's not throwing that away, Papa scoffed. You made your first free throw, all net, I may add, with that shirt on. It's got basketball mojo, just like my coveralls have Mr. Fix-It mojo. Papa and Oliver bumped fists, Lainey grinned, and Mama rolled her eyes. I hope your coveralls and t-shirts have pack up the apartment mojo, Mama said, because that's what I need from both of you right now. George Washington mewed and ran his claws around the side of a box of books, and Mama turned her wrath onto the cat. George Washington, if you touch one more box, I'm giving your dinner to the nice kittens living in the backyard. Mama, look, Lainey cried from her spot by the white donut box. She still wore the leggings hat, and the fabric for the legs flapped around her face. These are records. Mama collapsed on the kitchen stool and took a long drink of water. I found those at the back of the upstairs closet. They may have been here from the previous tenants. Miss Josie can use them. She has a record player. Okay, bring them upstairs and ask Miss Josie if she wants them. There's some jazz in there. Jazz, Lainey exclaimed. She grabbed the stack and whispered loudly to Oliver. Jazz, the Beakerman likes jazz. Oliver hushed her and then grabbed the records from Lainey's arms and dragged her upstairs. How do you know the Biederman likes jazz? He asked when they were out of Mama's earshot. Miss Josie said that long ago he used to listen to jazz all the time. Lainey answered. Can we bring a record up to him? You're absolutely sure? Like absolutely sure? Oliver said. I'm sure, Lainey said, bouncing up and down. Together they chose a record with a picture on the front of a man named Duke Ellington playing the piano. Oliver and Lainey crept upstairs, hand in hand. A sigh sounded with each step leading to the third floor, where they left the offering at his door. Chapter 10. The 5 Vanderbeeker kids were unabashedly eavesdropping on their mother's phone conversation. They knew from her voice and her pacing back and forth across the room that something bad was going down. I'm sorry, Mr. Biederman, that is not enough notice, Mama barked into her cell phone. It's the holidays. We have boxes all over the place. There is absolutely no way. Papa came in from the backyard, wiping his hands on his coveralls. Hey, kids, he boomed. Shh, responded the children, waving him away without taking their eyes off Mama. We're eavesdropping, Hyacinth said in a loud whisper, holding her index finger to her lips. Mr. Biederman, Mama continued, her voice going up an octave, you realize that the apartment is not going to look its best if you show it now, right? Pause. Okay, fine, goodbye. Mama stabbed a button on her phone and tossed it onto an end table. The Vanderbeeker kids and Papa surrounded Mama, waiting for an explanation. Mama massaged her temples. Mr. Biederman will have a real estate broker start showing the apartment to prospective renters beginning tomorrow. He strongly suggests that we not be in the apartment when it is shown. Mama gritted her teeth when she said strongly. The broker will try to give us at least 24 hours notice. That's legal? Asked Papa, shocked. Apparently it's in our lease and we signed off on it. The landlord has the right of entry for the purpose of showing the space to a prospective tenant in the last 30 days of our lease, Mama recited in a monotone voice. You're kidding, Oliver said flatly, his arms crossed. That makes no sense, cried Jessie. The probability that he could rent this place out would increase significantly if the apartment were vacant. Her eyes flitted between Mama and Papa. Landlords can do it, Mama said, but it would have been nice if he didn't. Oh, fudge, there's so much to do. Mama looked at the state of the ground floor. Mr. Biederman's realtor is showing the apartment tomorrow at 11. Papa sighed. Hun, why don't I take the kids out while you do some packing? And I'll try to talk to Mr. Biederman, later tonight. Mama nodded and then went up the stairs, 2 at a time. A second later, they heard her dragging more boxes around. Someone is actually going to live here? In our home? Asked Hyacinth, worried. That blows, Oliver said. He kicked the wall, leaving black smudges on the white paint. Don't kick the wall, Papa said absently as he adjusted his glasses. Someone's going to live in my room? Oliver asked. He kicked the wall again. They'll probably make it back into a closet, Jessie said. That's what it was before you were born. But, what? My books, Oliver spluttered. You know what we need around here, Papa said, attempting to change the anxious mood. Some holiday spirit. Let's get a Christmas tree. What's the point, Jessie said, flopping onto a kitchen stool and burying her head in her hands. We'll have to take it down in a few days anyway. Yeah, said Izzy, Oliver, and Hyacinth in a dejected agreement, while Lainey yelled, Tree! Tree! I want a tree! Everyone stared at Lainey. And we can decorate it, Lainey continued, and put lights up, and the presents go under the tree. And I'm going to make ornaments. She started skipping around the kitchen. And I'm going to give Paganini a big carrot for a present, and I'm going to wrap it. Papa looked at the older kids. So, are we getting a tree or what? The older kids watched Lainey run over to Paganini, lift up one floppy ear, and whisper all of her grand plans for the tree. Okay, said Izza. Fine, said Oliver. I guess, said Jessie. Yeah, said Hyacinth. Papa pulled his coveralls off. Underneath he was wearing jeans and a t-shirt that said, I'm here because you broke something. That's the Christmas spirit, kids. The Vanderbeeker kids put on their winter gear and headed out the door. Hello, Vanderbeekers, Angie yelled as she raced down the street on her bike. Oliver, you owe me a basketball game. You're on, Oliver yelled back. A window opened on the second floor of the brownstone. Hello, dear ones, called out Miss Josie. Hello, Miss Josie, the kids chorused. Lainey blew kisses to the second floor, which were returned with equal enthusiasm. A gentleman in baggy pants, an oversized jacket, and telephones swaggered by holding a rhinestone-studded leash attached to a pocket-sized chihuahua. Yo, Vanderbeekers, he said as he fist-bumped each one. Yo, Big Z, they answered. Did you ever notice, Izza said to Jessie, after watching Big Z stride down the street with his chihuahua, skipping behind him, that we know everyone in this neighborhood? Jessie nodded. Feels like Sesame Street. It's giving me a Biederman idea, Izza murmured. Jessie studied Izza, wanting to ask more, but then Oliver threw a handful of pine needles on her head, and Jessie's thought turned solely to revenge as she chased him down the street. It was a 20-minute walk to the Christmas tree stand, requiring the Vanderbeekers to cross a bridge that connected Harlem to the Bronx. It's a tradition, Papa had insisted when the kids suggested they go to the Christmas tree stand around the corner rather than walking to the Bronx. When I was a little boy, Papa said in his reminiscing voice, my dad took us across the bridge to Mr. Ritchie's Christmas tree stand. This was back when Christmas trees only cost $5. The kids nodded. They had heard this story so many times, Jessie could mouth the words along with Papa. One year, my dad broke his arm. He couldn't work for 6 weeks while it healed, and we had no money for a tree or presents that year. When I walked by Mr. Ritchie's Christmas tree stand one day, on the way to a subway, he asked me why we hadn't gotten a tree yet. I told him about my dad's arm, and he had me choose a tree and take it home anyway. He insisted that the tree would brighten up the holiday, and he was right. The tree stand was on a corner right next to the set of basketball courts, and when they got there, they found Mr. Ritchie sitting on a blue plastic crate, listening to a portable radio that gave out static in a far greater measure than the Tchaikovsky concerto he had it tuned to. When Mr. Ritchie saw them, he stood up and held a hand out to Papa. Good to see you, Mr. Ritchie, Papa said as he clapped his other hand on Mr. Ritchie's shoulder. Papa pulled a thick forest green scarf from his backpack, and Izza helped Papa wrap it around Mr. Ritchie's neck. From Mrs. Vanderbeeker, Papa explained. Mr. Ritchie fingered the end of the scarf and gave a satisfied nod and grunt. Lainey grabbed Mr. Ritchie's hand and swung it back and forth. I like your gold tooth, she told him. I want one too. Mr. Ritchie rewarded her with a small smile, his gold tooth glinting against the light of the street lamps. We want a tall tree, said Mr. Ritchie, raising her arm to indicate the height. "If the tree was 6 feet 4 inches exactly, it would fit perfectly into our living room. And it has to be fluffy, not skinny," Oliver added, his arms splayed wide. "We need one with a good straight branch on the top to stick the star on," Hyacinth said. "It has to be perfect," Isa said with a soft sigh as she fiddled with the buttons on her coat. While her siblings made their demands, Lainey had a different idea of the perfect Christmas tree. It didn't take her long for her to select the most crooked, most pathetic, most patchy pine tree in the bunch. Then she coerced Papa into dragging the tree to her sister and brother. Lainey tugged on Isa's arm to get her attention. "This is it," Lainey declared, jabbing her finger at the tree she had chosen. "Seriously?" asked Oliver. "You want our last Christmas tree to look like it was pulled out of a forest fire?" "Ollie," Lainey protested, stomping her foot and pouting. "I love it. It's cute and tall, and I like the branches, and I want it." The siblings looked at each other. Mr. Ritchie watched the Vanderbeekers with his hands clasped behind him, awaiting the final decision. Isa was the first to cave. "Lainey has never chosen the tree before," Isa admitted, with an indifferent shrug. "Yeah, for a reason," Oliver muttered. "Come on," Jessie protested. "We're supposed to get a tall, fluffy, symmetrical tree. This tree," Oliver pointed to the offending arbor, "fulfills exactly 0 of our specifications." "I think it looks great," Hyacinth said loyally. After all, Lainey was her roommate. Lainey's face broke into a huge grin that took up half of her face, and even Oliver had to admit that it was worth getting an ugly tree for that smile. "I guess the tree is sort of symbolic. And I want this one too," said Lainey, grabbing a tiny tree that sat next to Mr. Ritchie's milk crate stool. She thrust it at her dad while bouncing up and down. "Give a girl an inch, she'll take a mile," murmured Oliver. "Honey, we're not getting 2 trees," Papa said to Lainey. "Not for me, silly. For Miss Josie and Mr. Jeet," Lainey said. Papa relented. Mr. Ritchie wrapped up the tree in netting while Papa pulled out his wallet to pay. Lainey carried the small tree, and Papa hitched the bigger one to his shoulder. The dearth of bows and pine needles made it light and easy to carry. The Vanderbeekers waved goodbye to Mr. Ritchie, and Papa led the way home. They left the Bronx and went back over the bridge. The sun had set behind the castle on the hill, and the lights from the city sparkled on the water. A tugboat made its way down the river, causing the water to crash into the rocks along the shorelines. 10 minutes later, the Vanderbeekers rounded the corner into their sleepy street. The church with the stained glass windows was illuminated from the inside, which gave the building an ethereal look. All down the block, trees were wrapped in twinkling white lights for the holidays. Christmas trees and menorahs were displayed in the windows of many apartments. The red brick brownstone welcomed them home with the warm glow of lamps in the ground floor, first floor, and the second floor. The top floor was, as usual, hauntingly dark. Oliver opened the basement door just as Mama came downstairs with a big box in her arms. "Home so soon?" Mama asked. "We've got a winner," Papa replied as he screwed the tree into the holder in the living room. Mama put down her box and inspected it. "I think you brought home the wrong Lainey interrupted. "Isn't it perfect, Mama?" she said reverently. "Or not," Mama finished. She crouched down next to Lainey, who gazed rapturously up at the bedraggled tree. Mama took a second look. "I think it's lovely," Mama said. "Did you choose it yourself?" Yes, I did," Lainey declared. By this time, Papa had unearthed the box of Christmas decorations from the depths of the hallway closet. The kids surrounded it, eager to see the contents that had been locked away for the past 11 months. Papa lifted the box flaps, and suddenly there were candy canes that were who knows how old, the nativity that was missing Joseph, the snowman nesting dolls, and the smooth wooden plane ornament that had belonged to Papa as a child, which Oliver so treasured. It quickly became apparent that this tree offered unique decorating obstacles. The lack of bows made it difficult to hang the ornaments evenly, so the kids had to hang 10 or more ornaments per branch. Isa and Jessie supervised the decorating, moving ornaments around so the larger ones hung on the back of the boughs and the smaller ones hung from the tips. Mama set out cookies, and after an hour of arranging ornaments and eating cookies and singing and reminiscing about Christmases past, the tree trimming was complete. They held their breath as Papa flipped the switch for the tree lights. The tree was proud and majestic. The brownstone walls pulsed from the twinkling Christmas lights, making the walls look like they were breathing. Papa saw the tree and was reminded of the many Christmas trees he had dragged into the brownstone and set up in the exact spot. He couldn't believe that this would be the last Christmas they would spend here. Mama looked at the tree and remembered her children as toddlers, when they used to pull down the ornaments. For many years they had only decorated the top half of the tree, so that the ornaments were out of reach. Oliver looked at the tree and then at the cookie plate, noticing that only one cookie was left. He snatched it before anyone else could beat him to it. Sure, he had already eaten 4, but all was fair in love and cookies. Lainey looked at the tree and thought how perfect it was, the most perfect tree in the world. Hyacinth looked at the tree but didn't really see it. She was thinking about a complete stranger moving into the brownstone, moving into her bedroom. Isa gazed at the tree and thought about her new Biederman idea, while Jessie looked at her sister, wondering when she should tell Izzy about Benny. That's where we're going to stop today. We'll pick up with 11, which is the very end of the day of Saturday, December 21st, and then we will begin Sunday, December 22nd, right after that. Thank you for listening. We've been reading The Vanderbeekers of 141st Street by Karina Yan Glaser, published by Houghton, Mifflin, Harcourt. My name is Sarah Mari. I'm one of the librarians at Portland Public Library in Portland, Maine. Thank you for listening, and I hope to see you again soon. Bye.